Today's project is this kitchen tower helper so my niece and nephew can do stuff at the countertop. It's all made out of 3/4 inch plywood and this one closet rod here. I would say this is an easy to moderate woodworking project. The three main things I used were the router, the jigsaw, and the skill saw. It should be a pretty fun and easy project, so let's get into it. I got a little ahead of myself and already made the side pieces, but I figured I'd go back and go over the cut list and give you all the options that you can use. We have the side pieces here. That's 3/4 inch plywood and a 1/2 inch MDF template. I bought a bunch of these plans. Most of them are 36 inches tall and anywhere from 18 to 22 inches wide. Next up, we have the stretchers, which is how wide you want this to be. This is how you're going to connect the two sides. I made these 3.5 inches wide, and the length should be anywhere from 12 to 16 inches. And then you'll have this closet rod that you'll cut the same length as the stretchers. Next up, we have the bottom step. It's going to be about 3/4 of an inch longer than the stretchers to make it slide into the dados. This is about 4.5 inches wide here, and I'm going to radius this edge so it'll be a little smaller than this. For the top step, the main thing is you want to have the same width as your bottom step to slide into the dados. You can make this shorter depending on how big you want the platform to stand on. I think this is about 15 inches. Now I'm going to use the jigsaw to cut the corners and the handle out. Now I'm going to try to clean up all these corners with this spindle sander. Okay, now my template is pretty much done. One last thing, I'm going to round over all these edges. Now that the template is done, I want to go over how I made it and some important things to keep in mind. The most important thing for this template is to have clearance here for your second step to be able to go into different dados. I set it up so it's about 12, 16, and 20 inches here. The bottom step here is going to be about 6 inches off the ground. Next up, I think it's a good idea to make this top a little more narrower from the bottom so that it'll slant inwards. It'll make it easier to climb from the first step to the second step. And adding a handle is nice. For these sections you cut out, it's really just for weight reduction. You don't want to have full solid sheets even though you can. I've seen people do all kinds of intricate designs in these and draw stuff and cut it out with scroll saws. You just want to keep these widths, I would say, to a minimum of 3 inches wide. And it's nice to have two different feet so that you're not worried about on uneven surfaces this thing won't be rocking back and forth. Once you have your template exactly how you like it, you can just lay it on one of these pieces that you pre-cut and trace it out. And it doesn't have to be exact. Now I can drill a few holes and rough cut these openings to get ready for the flush trim router bit. So I like to leave, about an 1/8 inch around inside all these lines so we get a nice clean cut. Now that I have my template made and this side rough cut, I'm going to go ahead and clamp these two together and use my flush trim bit to clean these all up. The next step in the process is to round these edges over with a 1/4 inch round over. But before I do that, I wanted to lay my lines out where I'm going to cut the dados to slide the second step in, and where I'm going to cut my bottom step. So before I rounded these edges off, I measured up 6, 12, 16, and 20 inches. I used a square to mark them off this square side that we had. And over here, I'm going to stop the dados about 1.5 inches from the edge. So now that we have the lines marked out, we'll take the router and round over all these edges. Got my corners all rounded up here. I'm going to go ahead and cut these dados. To do that, I measured from this flat spot on my router to the edge of the bit using a scrap piece. I got this spacer here so I can just line it up with the marks. Put my level here as a straight edge, clamp it down, and run the dados. Like I said, I'm going to stop right here at this far edge, 1.5 inches from the end. That's one done. There's the 3 adjustable second steps and the bottom step. So now I'll do the other side and it'll be pretty close to assembly time. Next thing on this to-do list is round the edges on these stretchers. Now it's time to drill some pocket holes. Pocket holes are done. Now it's time to put the stretchers in, and I'll show you how I laid them out. Everything here is 3/4 off the edge. This one is equal with the bottom step, as is this one. This one is equal with this opening here, and this is 3/4 on both sides. So now we'll go ahead and put these in with a little bit of glue. Alright, that looks good. I went ahead and made the same marks on this other side so we can go ahead and glue it up and put them together. No wobbles, I think it'll hold together. Now it's time to install this closet rod. It should be the same length as your stretchers. I measured in 3/4 inch on each side again. I'm going to glue it up, drill it out, countersink it, and put some screws in it. I'm going to go ahead and make this bottom step now. I'm going to put a radius on it, and I'll show you a quick and dirty way of doing that. Basically, I mark the center line here, and then where I want it to end on each side, so it's like 1.25 inches there, plus the middle. You go online and go to a radius calculator. It'll give you a distance. In my case, it's about 20.5 inches, and you want to be square to this. So I have this square just for a rough measurement here. I have the string. I'm going to put one end of it where it should be here, pull it tight to the end, and just trace away. It's not the best over here, but for what I'm doing, it'll be fine. You get the idea. Now I'll cut this out on the bandsaw and sand it down. Now it's time for the spindle sander to clean some of this up. That looks good enough for me. Now we'll get back onto the router table and round these edges over on the front and back. It's looking pretty good now. To finish up everything that needs to be glued in here, I'm going to put the bottom shelf in now. I'm going to glue on each side here and along here, and then put one screw on each side. Now I just need to wipe the glue up. For this top step, I'm going to do a 2-inch radius, just a little more than the bottom. So I'm going to do the same thing here with the pencil and the string. My new radius is like 14.5 or thereabouts, so we'll see here. So I get it here, I'm going to move this. Hopefully it goes corner to corner. Alright, I like that, so we'll cut that out on the bandsaw. I think that'll work. Now that I have this radius all sanded up, I'm going to go ahead and round this off on the front and back and call it good. I let the glue dry up last night, and I also glued these pocket hole dowels in. You could sand these off, but I'd rather cut them off with this flush cut saw because I hate sanding that much. So let's do that real quick. It's time to sand this thing up as quickly as possible while still making it look decent. To do that, I'm going to use 120 and work my way up to 220 probably. Going to use this random orbital and a sanding block for the hard to reach places. Let's get it done. The final step of the project is to put this finish on. You can do whatever you'd like. I'm going to do the water-based polyurethane, put 3 or 4 coats on, and sand it in between. Here's the final product. I think it turned out pretty well, and it's just in time for Christmas. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time.